On Cole Perfetti for the benefit of us in the media.
Again, I think that obviously, I had a conversation with Cole's representatives there this morning, and we're looking at things and trying to make it work.
So, in terms of the ongoing situation, is there still some level of disappointment, Kevin, that the talks haven't been able to progress to the point where Cole could be on the ice today?
Well, you're always looking to hit the ground running, and in all aspects of things. Certainly with Arnie's first training camp and important. Teaching things that happen early in camp. We play exhibition games coming up, kind of quicker than normal usually, Saturday, Sunday afternoon. So things happen fast, day by day, so you hope that, it gets done.
But it's generally encouraging, though, from so far?
Well, again, I think, at this stage of things, it's the focus is on, on getting done. And if it's done, then it's encouraging. When it's not, there's work to be done.
Can you draw parallels to any situations you've had in the past? I know Josh Morrissey talked about him not showing up or not being at the beginning of camp a couple of years ago.
Yeah, I think it would be hard to kind of characterize similarities in anything. I think every situation is unique. I think that's probably what makes it somewhat difficult at times. Is that you look at comparables in situations like this, players that are RFAs coming out of their first contract going into their second contract. There's tricky sometimes to get on the same page.
Are there any details about it that you can share with us, sticking points, anything like that?
I don't know that necessarily helps the process. It's never been really my style to do that. So I think that try to stay true to that.
In this situation, Kevin, sorry, what does it take in this situation to get it across the line? Like, does it give on both sides? Is it one side? Like, I mean, how do these situations play out normally?
I guess, generally, both sides, talk their way through things or, write their way through things with emails or just try to put different points across to each other and, hopefully, something hits home with both sides that, you can grasp onto.
Those guys who think this, it's business at the end of the day, and a lot of the guys that you talk to even here in the dressing room that have been through this before, they don't, but there's always this balance between it being business and personal, and when does that, how do you know that, and do you have to not really kind of take that into consideration?
Well, I guess that's the hardest part, because personally I'd give these guys the moon, they're awesome guys. I'd love to, have the ability to pay them, everything that they want and deserve. It's in a salary cap world, you have to make business decisions, and those are again, it's done through the back and forth. It's done through comparables, and again, hopefully you try to find something that works for both sides.
For those of us on the outside who see or who may be concerned about the fact that Cole doesn't have a contract yet, when you consider that he was in Vegas representing your club for the media tour, and that he was at a public appearance on behalf of the club last week as well, is that an indication of, you didn't say you didn't want to characterize the negotiations, but just those signs, are those something that indicate a positivity within the negotiation process?
Well, and again, I think for us, obviously, as an organization, you get to choose who you send to, the media tour in Vegas, and we think the world of Cole and thought it'd be a great experience for him. And never once did we say you can't go because you don't have a contract. So that's certainly not how I operate, and not wasn't going to be something. So it was a great experience, I'm sure, for him. He gets an opportunity to to be with some great players and get some exposure. So glad on him that he went.
Some of your best work as an organization has been these second deals where you get a really quality player who grows in and maybe outperforms even that contract. Do you, though, need more games played? Like, is Cole in the same type of window that, a Scheifele, a Connor, and Ehlers, and the various other guys you've really excelled with on this front would have been at?
Well, again, I think that kind of gets more into the negotiation side of things and the context of things. So, again, we'll see where things land, and maybe that's a fair question to answer after we find out where we can land.
And comparable-wise, you mentioned sort of the types of contracts that you're looking for to use. Like, I think a player entering a second contract. Does that then, Shane Pinto and Gabriel Velarde both look like comparables from the outside to a fellow like me, but does that sort of disqualify them from your point of view, or are they fair?
Well, I think the hardest part is there's different levels of contract negotiations in this league. RFAs don't have arbitration rights. Some RFAs that do have RFAs that coming out of their first contract, generally don't have arbitration rights. And that's becomes a sticking point sometimes, and when players do have arbitration, obviously, and they file, then there's a deadline, and there's a mechanism in place that that contracts follow, and you work towards that.
Kevin, when Cole had done his medical the other day, I think it's voluntary if an RFA
Yeah,
could do.
I think he's done part of it. I don't know that he's done all of it.
You've had a lot of training camps on your resume. What excites Kevin Cheveldayoff coming into this one?
Well, again, the opportunity to speak to the guys, yesterday at our opening dinner is always something that I relish. I'm not a guy that, goes and makes addresses to the team. That's the coach and that. So I get an opportunity to speak with them, yesterday, and that's an exciting time. The last time that I would have spoken with the majority of them was, at exit meetings last year, and so I kind of reminded or rekindled some of those conversations that we had with the majority of the guys, and with respect to the work that they put in over the summer and the commitments that they made to be X% better as an individual, so we can be X% better as a group. And the unique thing is what we did last year, the goods and the bads, and there's a lot of goods, that's in the past, and our focus here right now is obviously, step by step. You've got to eliminate 8 teams in the regular season to get to the playoffs, and and then if you earn that right to get to the playoffs, you go from there. So that's the focus that we talked about. That's the excitement level, I think, that we have. We didn't win last year, and there are going to be, naturally, there's some changes that always happen, but I think that is the level of excitement that I think that drives you in this game here is, can we get better as a group here, and looking at a different way of doing it now.
You mentioned in the summer that if you were a young player in this organization, you'd be pretty excited, and talking to some of the young prospects last week, it seems like everybody kind of heard that message. Just from what you've seen so far, young stars and whatnot, how would you say your young players have responded to that challenge?
Well, I think a lot of them had a good summer of training. We were able to see them kind of midsummer at the development camp in a lot of cases, and then that's kind of why you have that development camp, is to kind of get a benchmark of where some people are at, and then compare it to them when they get to training camp, see what kind of work's gone on in the summer there, and you can see that a lot of guys have put in some meaningful time. I think it's an exciting time for a veteran on this team too, because there's opportunities to take on different roles. Whether it's an expanded leadership role, whether it's expanded game role. Everybody in this game wants more, and it's up to them to earn that opportunity for more. And again, I think it's a unique situation, where you weren't looking to change a coach after such a successful year last year. And in some ways we did change a coach. In all ways we changed a coach, but in some ways, we're continuing, that year-over-year progression over the last 2 years of what provided us some success, and we know the type of game that we need to play. And I do think that Arnie's going to bring some real fresh ideas on some of the other areas of the game that can be improved upon.
Was Cole at the opening dinner, the team opening dinner last night?
No.
Sorry, Kevin, speaking of the coach, you've known him for a long time. What did you learn about him since he's taken over the head job this summer, watching him work and prepare for the season?
Yeah, again, I really believe that, he was able to hit the ground running, with respect to the relationship sides of things, and, just the day over day, talking to him about the conversations that he, have with different players, and on a regular basis. He flew out to Calgary to meet with, Scheif, JMO and Laus. And again, just that excitement, just that general giddiness of let's get this going. I think that's the whole coaching staff. There's a different vibe, because, you know, they're, in some ways, they're all still kind of learning from each other and gonna take best practices from each other. But when, you know, anytime you start a new situation, I think that there's that excitement level. So certainly, you know, for those three guys in the room, in the coach's room, you know, there's that level of excitement that you can really tell.
You've been around for a long time and seen coaches getting their second crack at things. What's the biggest advantage, you know, no matter if it's 2 years later or, you know, 10 or 11 years later?
Yeah, you know, and again, I think that, you know, the coaches will tell you it's just how much that they've learned, the delta of you know, what they've learned about themselves. You know, and if they're honest with themselves about their, you know, first opportunity or prior opportunity, and most of them are, they grow from it and they learn. You know, they're not coaches. You know, they live obviously in glass houses. So, but they learn from that. They learn, you know, kind of their shortfalls, and if they're humble enough, then they grow from it. And I can tell that, you know, a player like, you know, Arnie, during our conversations, you know, sometimes it's a delicate question you can ask, but, you know, his answers, you know, were full of, you know, kind of like, I've learned now from, you know, Rick Bowness, I've learned from AV, I've learned from, you know, Lavi, I've learned from all these different guys. He talked about all those different things, but you could really tell, you know, 2 years ago when we did, when he, you know, sat down with an interview, you know, it was interesting because, you know, guys like Larry Simmons didn't know him. Zinger obviously knew him, but from a different time. But, you know, his presentation, his preparedness, his conversations, his, you know, mannerisms, you know, just, you know, again, or you could just tell that he was, you know, chomping at the bit to do this again.
When he's talked to us, Scott has been really forthcoming. He was saying, hey, these are the things in Columbus that, you know, I probably wanted to do better in my next go. And it also sounds like he's learned from Bonus in terms of empowering people around him. What have you seen from him in terms of how he's interacting with his new staff and making sure that they have everything they need?
Well, I think he's been a, you know, an associate coach, assistant coach for such a long time. I think that, you know, he knows what, you know, what he liked about being, you know, in that position from the other guys, what he's learned. So I think he's definitely, you know, empowering them. But I do think that, you know, he's decisive as well. He's got his own thoughts and his opinions. And, you know, generally when you come out of the American League and take your first NHL job, you kind of think you know it all. And I think, you know, this league is very, you know, humbling when it comes, you know, comes to that. So you can't do it alone as a coach. You can't do it alone as a player. You know, it takes a team of coaches, it takes a team of players to, you know, to kind of get that common goal.
What are some of the battles, positional battles you're looking forward to? I mean, you know, we talked so much last year about depth, so many double-digit goal scorers. You've also got depth guys to compete for the top, you know, fourth-line jobs. You've got guys competing for third-pairing jobs. Well, how are you approaching that part of it?
With a very open mind, I think. You know, again, you know, one thing you can't control is, you know, injuries or how things go in camp and stuff like that. So you have to kind of keep an open mind. You know, again, I was excited to watch the group play in Penticton there. There's, you know, some guys that, you know, have taken good steps year over year from that standpoint. And, you know, looking forward to seeing them get into the, you know, lineups here and see what, you know, what can happen at the next level. But, you know, again, it's just keeping an open mind, I think, is the, you know, from that standpoint, there's, like I say, there's lots of different situations, I think, that, you know, we're focusing on.
Kevin, maybe a bit of a big question, but over the summer, a lot of good teams losing players, a lot of teams on the lower end getting pretty aggressive. Chicago comes to mind, even San Jose, surprised by some of the things that they added. But how do you see that the league has changed, and where do you maybe see your team's opportunity within that change?
Well, I think, you know, the things changed a little bit, obviously, because, you know, we were in, you know, kind of an artificially flat cap situation for such a long time, you know, with respect to, you know, battling our way out of, you know, the business side of COVID. So obviously, you know, the jump in the salary cap, I think, put a lot of money into the market. Obviously, a team like Utah, you know, went into the market, you know, where last year their salaries were on the lower side. So, you know, again, I think it was an interesting time, I think, for a lot of different things. But in our situation, you know, obviously, you know, you have to kind of sit back and take a look at your own, you know, personal situation here. And for us to get better, You know, we need this competition to, you know, from whether it's young guys or whether it's veteran guys taking, you know, the next steps. That's what's important for us in our own organization right now.
Whether or not those young players make that jump as it is, I know last year a lot of times if there was injuries, you'd kind of promote from within the lineup and kind of feed, you know, from the AHL at the bottom of the lineup. Do you think that you're getting to a stage, whether they make the team or not, that guys like Chipikov or Lambert are in a position now to jump up and fill maybe top 6 roles in the case of injury?
Well, that's up to them. You know, that's up to them to show that, you know, they're ready. That's up to every player to show that whatever opportunity is earned by them, that they take advantage of it. And so whether you're a veteran guy or a young guy, you know, this is all about the Jets winning, and that's you know, every decision that we have made and are going to continue to make are going to be, you know, about trying to put the Jets in the best, you know, opportunity to win. The National Hockey League is a very tough league to, you know, to develop in. You can have a great 5 weeks, 10 weeks, 2 months, and, you know, have one bad month or a couple of bad weeks, and you know, the mental side of it can be very, very tricky for any player.
Just one housekeeping, with medicals, did everybody get through that okay?
No, I think so. I think, you know, I think there's one player that might have just an illness. I think Nikkanen is, you know, just sick today, day to day. But, you know, there were some bumps and bruises from Penticton that, you know, were kind of questionable, but everything seemed to be good in that regard.
Chaz would be good to go. I know he shed the non-contact.
So he shed the non-contact. You know, again, it'll be a slower process still for him to get back to, you know, game ready. So we'll just kind of take it day by day with him. But excited to see him out there, and he generally looks like he's moving well. Like the surgery he had is not a traditional one, not an easy one that, you know, when he had it, the doctors were very, very cautious about saying, like, the rehab is going to be very intense.